Hello and welcome to Speaking Volumes, a new television programme which aims to take us on a journey through all the written word and anything to do with reading, writing, poetry and books in and around Gibraltar. And today I have on my panel Conchita Triay and Barbara Durante. Good evening, thank you for coming.
Good evening.
Today we will be discussing the novel Brooklyn by Colm Tóibín. But before that, we are going over to our local poet and writer Giordano Durante.
Caxtons are mechanical birds with many wings, and some are treasured for their markings. They cause the eyes to melt or the body to shriek without pain. I have never seen one fly, but sometimes they perch on the hand. Mist is when the sky is tired of flight and rests its soft machine in the ground. Then the world is dim and bookish, like engravings under tissue paper. Rain is when the earth is television. It has the property of making colours darker. Model T is a room with a locking side. A key is turned to free the world for movement. So quick there is a film to watch for anything missed. But time is tied to the wrist or kept in a box, ticking with impatience. In homes, a haunted apparatus sleeps that snores when you pick it up. If the ghost cries, they carry it to their lips and soothe it to sleep with sounds. And yet they wake it up deliberately by tickling with a finger. Only the young are allowed to suffer openly. Adults go to a punishment room with water but nothing to eat. They lock the door and suffer the noises alone. No one is exempt and everyone's pain has a different smell. At night, when all the colours die, they hide in pairs and read about themselves.
This poem takes a few reads. I read it and then I read it again and there's so many, and then I started to get some of the imagery.
Yeah.
So what made you pick this?
I think it's one of my favourite modern poems. I think it's written in the late 70s, and it really established what's called the Martian School of Poetry.
Tell us about that.
Right, so Craig Raine is started the school really with this poem, Martian Sends a Postcard Home, and then it was taken up by someone called Christopher Reid as well. And the main idea of the Martian School of Poetry is that you describe things as if they were seen through the eyes of a Martian. So you start describing things in very unusual, highly original ways. So you look at them with new eyes. Like here, for example, it starts off describing a book. So Caxtons, after William Caxton, who brought the printing press to England, are mechanical birds with many wings. So obviously these are the leaves, the pages of a book, which are likened to a bird with many wings. Some are treasured for their markings. So the way the alien is seeing this is as almost like machine-like. It has markings, but obviously we see it as print, as words. And the poem carries on like that, describing certain human and man-made phenomena.
It's quite... With each read, I kept seeing more and trying to guess. Yeah. And I'm sure that, are there answers? Is there somewhere all the answers are written down, or is it just your own interpretation?
It does require some work. I mean, I'm not a big fan of saying that a poem is just what you make it out to be. I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I think the poet intended something. There are words with certain meanings, and it has a certain form, and certain decisions were made to do it this way. What is Raine saying in this poem, do you think? I mean, I think he's just like asking us to see the world afresh, like, to defamiliarize things. So books, going to the toilet, a car, rain.
It's a great exercise to use one's imagination. I imagine it'd be a great one to do in schools.
Yeah, and I think, apart from the poems that were written specifically within the Martian School, I think it's a great exercise for any young poet. Describe this teacup in a way that makes it totally alien and unfamiliar.
Thank you for that, Giordano Durante. Now to our main discussion, Brooklyn by Colm Tóibín. This is a novel by an Irish author, Colm Tóibín, and it won the 2009 Costa Novel Award and was shortlisted for the 2011 International IMPAC Dublin Literary Award, and was also longlisted for the Man Booker. The Observer named it one of the 10 best historical novels. Brooklyn is a mature coming-of-age story about a young woman, Alice Lacey, who, unable to find work in 1950s Ireland, emigrates to New York. As with many coming-of-age stories, Brooklyn focuses on the reflection that death, travel and romantic love force on people at various times in their lives. By setting the book in the 1950s, there is an additional layer to Ellis's frustrations in the workforce. There were only so many jobs a woman could have, and her aspirations seem meagre by current standards. Yet, the struggle Ellis, women and other immigrants face is universal and will give readers much to ponder as they place themselves in her situation. So, Brooklyn, 1950s Ireland, is it something that...
I can identify with?
Yeah.
I was born in Ireland, a bit later than that, but the world that she tries to escape from is very repressive, old-fashioned. There's no future for her there, and that's why she undertakes this journey. The priest finds her a job in New York. Unfortunately, when she goes there, life isn't very much different at the beginning. She lives in an Irish-run boarding house. Her job in a department store is very boring. It's only gradually that she spreads her wings and starts to evolve as a person. Starts studying, starts meeting people, meets a young man.
Of course.
A young man.
Yeah.
And that takes off from there.
I think it's interesting in that Ellis, she's the sister to Rose, who is a much more colourful character to begin with, much more confident.
The opening is like her describing her sister's clothes. Her sister was beautiful and
very
fashionable.
beautiful, and she belongs to the golf club. And in a way, the sister does sacrifice herself because she could have been the one to go to America, but I think she understands that unless Ellis leaves, there really is nothing there for her. So Ellis is a much more...
she's quite submissive. She
goes along with what
her
she's
mother
told.
is everything. I mean, this is the mother and the two daughters, and it is...
Yeah, because the brothers are away in working in England, and Ellis basically does what she's told to do, and it's a very sort of... strange. It's a huge step for her. I mean, going off to America, imagine in those days, and basically depending on this priest who is going to find her a job there.
The way the writer... I just felt immediately that I was there, and he, as a man, writing from that perspective of a young woman, and that adventure element.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I just felt like, what? Get on that.
Because although it's a big adventure,
and get out of there.
His prose is very measured.
Yes, he's very quiet.
But you're
his novels are like
immediately
that,
taken away. You're with him on this journey, the journey that she makes to America, and the problems that she faces, the discrimination that she comes across.
She encounters,
And I mean, I won't spoiler alert. I won't spoil the plot for anybody. But something big happens that makes Ellis has to go. Once she's settled, she'd fallen in love with Tony, and then something dramatic happens, and she has to go back to the small town.
And that's where the problem starts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because she's still drawn to Ireland.
Yes.
And I think that's what happens. As an immigrant, you embrace your new country, but part of you always belongs to your native country.
This thing about immigrants was running on because she met other immigrants. She met, black people, Italians, Jews, people that she wasn't used to, but she was just one of them. She was another immigrant in a big melting pot.
Yeah.
So there's a real immigration theme going through this book.
Yeah,
yes.
As well as like family and loyalty.
But also I think the development of her own character is important because, as I say, when she first starts off, she's this
meek and
person who totally lacks in self-confidence, who basically is shaped by those around her and who is told what to do. And to some extent, to a large extent, I think this also happens when she meets Tony. Is it Tony? Yeah. Who is a very forceful, attractive Italian man who is very much in love with her, and she sort of feels compelled by that. One feels a little bit before she's ready for it, and she makes certain decisions.
She has no experience of men, her brothers,
she has no experience,
and the priests.
Yeah.
She hasn't had any romantic entanglements, and then she goes over. Also, his family's a bit overwhelming.
Yes.
Italian family. There's some wonderful scenes, aren't there, with the descriptions of the food.
Well, she learns, she practices how to eat spaghetti. So that when she goes and she eats spaghetti with the family, they're very impressed at the way she does it. So yes, so I think the development of her character is very interesting. You feel that it's only towards the end of the novel when she's beginning to know who she is
Yeah.
and to actually start thinking for herself. And that's when the
Well,
big
that's just
dilemma.
The dilemma, which we're not going to reveal.
no.
But that's the most important part of the book,
Yeah.
isn't it?
That's gripping at the end.
Yeah.
Were you gripped by that? You kind of
Definitely.
don't know. You're like,
Will she,
well,
won't
she
she?
will.
Yes.
Yeah,
And you don't know. You don't know what
tense.
you would like her to do. Well, I
You
think I
don't
knew
know,
what I
do
wanted
you?
her to do.
Oh, go on, say it. Say
No,
it.
no, because then
Because-
I'd give too much away. I'd give too much away.
Yeah, yeah.
But you are torn yourself as a reader because it's an impossible situation,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
that she finds herself in.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very topical, obviously, because of all the, the news about immigrants and how they adapt and, fit in their new country and all the rest. This was obviously a previous wave of immigrants. I mean, many people left Ireland, ever since the famine. People went to seek a better life, and America was very popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I think you said something about him, the sensitivity that he shows in portraying this
Yeah.
young woman. I think, this is talking about something that is another book, but I think he's very good at portraying the sensitivities of both men and women. As in, it's
Nora Wester.
Nora Wester.
That's another great book by him.
Is it Webster?
Yeah.
Or
Wester.
Wester.
Or Webster, not sure.
Webster, I think.
Webster,
and that is totally about this woman again. I think in the in 1950s.
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
it? And you wouldn't. Well, I think a great writer should be able to write from the perspective of
Yes.
a man or a woman,
Yeah.
but not everybody can do
No,
that.
no,
but
no.
then
Yeah.
he
There's some
does have.
there was so
that
much
ability.
detail, like he described the sister's cardigan and the clothing. He described things. There was wonderful detail, and there were wonderful relationships between women.
Yeah, and the
Sister,
boarding
mother,
house.
Yeah, the
also.
boarding
I
house.
think that's quite.
it's
The
hilarious.
boss,
funny.
the department store boss. There was
Oh,
that
yes.
sort of
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, that
interested
slightly
in-
racy bit.
Dodgy
Yeah,
bit.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
you know. And this you think, God, this poor girl from Ireland, but you could feel it, and you're on that, as you say, we're on that journey with
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
No, the boarding house is hilarious. In the film, it's done wonderfully.
In the film,
I normally
yeah.
don't, like when books have been made into a film, but this is very successful.
Yeah.
And that scene,
Yeah, that
in
scene
the boarding
is
house,
very, very,
with the
very
Irish
funny.
one, yeah.
with
I
the
mean,
all-
obviously, we want people to read the book,
Yeah.
but this the film was a brilliant interpretation of the book.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes
but
the films
obviously
ruin it, but
it's a good interpretation, but you miss out on an
Yes.
awful lot.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
fun
Film.
to read the book and then just have it the visual
Yeah.
aspect of it and the
Yeah.
characters brought to life there, but you don't really need them bringing to life in your own imagination. I haven't read any others of his, and this has
Well,
made
you
me
should-
want to
you
read
should,
more.
because,
of his.
he writes
The style is
extremely well,
lovely,
yeah.
and the characters, and it's not heavy. But the subjects are. It makes you think, but the
Yeah.
writing isn't heavy.
No, it's an easy read.
Very.
It is an easy read. Yeah.
It's an easy read. It's not complicated. The plot isn't complicated, but it just carries you along on her journey, and you're with her all the way, inside her,
So,
experiencing what she's experiencing.
so you enjoyed this book? I mean, we don't always enjoy the books we
No,
read
we
in our
don't,
club,
no.
do we? But
I think I chose it, so.
I
you did
enjoyed it.
choose-
I enjoyed
choose
it. It wouldn't be one of the ones that I would think it was one of the best ones
No.
I've read. But
Yeah.
I did. I think it's a very good book. Yeah.
So you would recommend people to definitely
Yeah.
read.
Everyone should go
And it's a
buy it.
very easy read, as you say.
Yeah.
It's an easy read, but it's well written.
And it's thought-provoking,
Yeah.
especially in nowadays, with
Okay.
all the debate about immigration and that. It's quite relevant.
Conchita, Barbara, many thanks for your input. We will have a bit more to say about Brooklyn in part 2 of Speaking Volumes. Welcome back to part 2 of Speaking Volumes. Now we will have Quote in Question with Louis Emmett Stern. Louis has chosen quotes from various books and texts, and Barbara and Conchita and I will analyse them and see if we can figure out where they came from. Take it away, Louis.
We did that often. asking each other the questions whose answers we already knew. Perhaps it was so we would not ask the other questions, the ones whose answers we didn't want to know.
Does ring a bell, but I've no idea really. So
No, I know.
no, it could be from
It's modern, obviously. It's provocative.
modern.
Asking
Does it? Do you
questions.
think it has to be modern?
I don't know what else. If it's not modern, what doesn't ring? You know.
Well, no, not the obvious classics, but
no, I'm afraid we don't have an idea. What
We
about
haven't.
you,
I
Rebecca?
haven't got a clue, but it was very well recited, wasn't it?
Very well. 10 out of 10 for reciting it beautifully.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're
I'm
absolutely
looking forward to
flummoxed.
this.
yeah, I'm looking
but
forward to knowing where it comes from.
Yeah, I'm
you
looking
want to know
forward.
where it's from.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Reveal, Louis.
Reveal.
This week's quote in question was taken from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's 2003 novel Purple Hibiscus. Adichie became popular after audio from her TED Talk, We Should All Be Feminist, was included in Beyoncé's Flawless music video.
We've all read that book.
I knew it was modern. I was right.
Purple Hibiscus.
It
You
was
were
modern.
right. You
We've
were
read
right.
the book, but I wouldn't remember a line from
A
a
line-
novel.
Did we read Purple Hibiscus?
Well, not as a part of the book.
No, no,
No.
no, no.
No.
no, just as a.
No, we've read it, but it hasn't been. Maybe we should add
Yeah.
it to our list.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes.
yes.
I read
yeah.
a few by her, but I can't remember all.
Yeah,
the
well,
names.
maybe we should put it on our book club list. I mean, we, for the benefit of the viewers, we've been in this book. When did we start the book club?
2008.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's how many of us? There's sometimes there's 18, isn't there? But
Well,
sometimes
now
there's
we've
3.
no.
We meet once a month, and we discuss, but we choose the books in a democratic fashion. Everyone has a chance to
Yes.
put forward books. Sometimes we like them, sometimes we don't. But that's part of the fun. It also broadens the scope of what you read. Whereas
Yeah.
I used to always read modern novels. Now, obviously, we've introduced, I've read more classics. To my shame, I wasn't a great fan
I
of
do.
the
I do.
classics.
I enjoy.
And
I enjoy the classics.
I didn't read modern novels until I joined this book club.
Yeah.
I was reading like more European history and then just more of it. And you can read so much of the same genre, can't you? Because
Yeah.
there's so many books out there. But
yeah.
I loved the book club because of that. I started reading things that I would never read.
Well, you wouldn't normally choose because you obviously have your own preconceptions about things, and you
Yeah,
choose
what you enjoy.
a certain kind of novel, perhaps, or you just wouldn't think of reading some of the stuff that has been
No,
suggested
I think we've made some
with some mistakes.
some choices.
Well,
that
because
Martin Chuzzlewit,
Yes.
we
Yeah,
really
okay.
found
okay,
hard
because
going.
to read a minor novel by Charles Dickens is a bit of a
was
risk.
a bit crazy, yeah.
You get all Dickens' characteristics, but sort of multiplied by 40.
Yeah,
you know?
that wasn't fun.
You know, too much.
We've
much.
read some books in translation, some in Spanish,
Yeah.
some French. Yeah,
Yeah.
we always try to read the Booker Prize winner,
Yeah.
except the last one, that's
Yes,
7 Killings.
I read that one.
Yeah.
I managed on Audible because, as you know,
Yeah.
I do a lot of my. I don't know what you say. You read a book. You don't read a book in Audible.
You listen
So
to a
you
book.
listen to a book
Yeah.
on Audible. I do get through a lot of books on Audible, which for me works very well.
Yeah.
I find that, for example, those Booker Prize winners, it just shows you that, you think it's not just me that thinks this is terrible. It's
Yeah.
won this big award.
No, but I don't-
But
Yeah.
we go, and then there's. It's good to sort of discuss it with other people and realise that actually we all thought it was bad.
No, I wouldn't say that it was bad. I think it was a huge achievement of a novel. I have to say that it was very, very hard work. And that if I hadn't been listening to it, because it's a novel that has all these different voices.
Yeah, and the different
obviously,
patois, the
yes,
Jamaican.
and when
It's
you're
hard to
when you're
read.
listening,
It
it's
was
very
hard.
hard to
Yeah,
read. I
yes.
wouldn't have got through it if I'd been actually reading it. But because I was listening to it, I managed. You had the different voices, the different accents, and I think that made it a lot
That's
more
one of the few
palatable.
books I didn't finish. The thing is that if you know you're
Yeah.
going to be discussing it, you feel
Yeah.
sort of pressured.
Yeah.
You've got to finish the book.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you were just reading it for your own enjoyment, you say,
I've only
not
very
reading this.
recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, actually stopped myself from completing a book because I always felt that if I started a book, I had to finish it.
Yeah.
Now I think, well, life is very short and I'm not going to read, but I've only done that with literally maybe 2 or 3 books. Parade's End for me
that was another
the,
disaster.
the worst
You read it?
book
I picked that.
ever.
Oh, you picked it.
And Martin
Horrendous.
Chuzzlewit. I was sort of thinking like we need to read these
But
heavy
Martin
books, and they
Chuzzlewit
were heavy.
Was, you know, I read it all and I did enjoy aspects of it. Parade's End for me was horrendous. I didn't enjoy
And
any
when
of it.
talking about Audible, when you read things in Kindle, it's really depressing when you're going like that and underneath it says you've read 1% and you've been there for like half an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use Kindle, but
You know,
Yeah.
one of those
but
books
just-
when you're struggling.
Yeah, to be
you
told.
want to be,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
engrossed and want
Yeah.
to
So
turn
where-
the page.
I think with a book club, it does have to be quite structured, and we meet at the same place.
You have to, and then if you can't
Every-
make it, you don't make it. But it's something that people can do at home, you know,
Yeah.
maybe if a group of 3 or 4 people, that's
Yeah.
all you need, really.
Yes.
And it is fun because obviously, apart from talking about the book, and sometimes we don't talk enough about the book.
Yes, true.
And
We're not very disciplined.
And a few times I think we have made the attempt. We've told ourselves that we need to go more in depth.
Yeah.
You know, and that
We've made a rule recently, haven't we? We have to bring questions.
We do
Yeah.
need to
every
look. Maybe
meeting.
each person have 2 or 3 points that they particularly want to make about something, or maybe have a choice of quotes or something like that. So you don't just skim over it too superficially
that's
and then
true.
start talking about everything else.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel that that we had this rule that we introduced last time. Everyone's got to write notes. Well, not loads, just write a few questions, and also you can go on the most books. You could go on the internet and get like questions for book clubs. They do that. They have packages.
Yeah.
It's, you just print it out and you can do question and answer. It's more like delving into
Yeah.
making us think more. And we don't always all agree. I mean. But
Which is
sometimes,
good.
No, we
which
don't.
is very good.
Stimulating
Yeah.
because, you know, we're all nodding and saying yes. That
Yes.
doesn't,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
give create a good discussion.
And it's quite nice if some people get very into characters or you hate certain characters. And I do like those passionate discussions that we have based
Yeah.
on a book.
We've had our quizzes.
Yeah,
We've
we
done
do our book
quiz.
annual quiz, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an easy thing to start up.
It
and
is
obviously
an easy thing, and it's not expensive, especially with people with Kindles and people with. Well, I mean, I don't use it, but I buy the books usually second hand, and then pass it around to someone else, and everything gets recycled. It's a very simple way of having a good meeting once a month and making yourself read a book, at least one book a month.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a difficult thing to do. It's very rewarding. I mean, we've been going since 2008. I've spoken to other people in other book clubs, and hopefully we'll get some of those people involved and on the sofa to have chit chats about books that they've read.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear how they structure their book clubs.
Yeah.
But there's plenty out there. Now we're going to head down to our local library at John Mackintosh Hall, where Kimberly Pizzino, head librarian, will tell us how everything works down there.
New books are normally selected through a number of different ways. The main one being a book request form that we have on the library's main counter, and thereby members of the public can request books that we don't particularly have in the stock, and then we will order them, and so they can become part of the library stock. We also consult bestseller lists, so books that have won prizes, Man Booker Prize, Costa Prize, things like that. We will also look at books that are being made into movies and films in the upcoming year, because we find with previous experience that that is very popular. And we will also look at, for example, if it's before the Literary Festival, we will order books that have been written by the authors that are coming to the Literary Festival. For World Book Day, we will also focus on children's books, because we know that that is the age range that World Book Day is most popular for. So once we've collected our list, we will order from our suppliers in the UK. They normally take about 3 weeks to arrive because they come over land freight. So once they come into the library, we accept them, we receive them. We have to check against the invoices that everything has come in. So we will separate them normally into adult fiction, adult non-fiction, and children's and young adults together. Once all of that has been sorted out and everything's been passed on to accounts for payments, then we will start processing the book. And what that entails is labelling it. We have to cover it as well to protect it from any dirt and damage. We have to add the date page to it, because or else then members of the public don't know when they have to bring their book back for. And we catalogue it as well. And the main important part is registering it on our online catalogue and processing system, or else then it's not considered part of the library stock. Once all of that is in place, then it can finally go out on the shelf and can be loaned.
Well, that wraps it up for this week. Join us next week to discuss The Sacrifice by Joyce Carol Oates. Thank you for joining us on Speaking Volumes. Good night.